Welcome back to This Day. Joining us now from Providence Mission Hospital is Dr. Parsha Doritz. And welcome. So nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
And pleasure. Thank you for being here today. I know it's your son's day off.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Good thing this is early in the morning,
That's
right? You
right.
still have the whole day to...
He's looking forward to me coming back home.
Aww, like a daddy Sunday.
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, today's topic is epilepsy. I know, it's not something anyone ever wants to have to deal with, but what causes epilepsy?
It's a really good question. Epilepsy is kind of a general term. It covers a lot of different things. So depending actually on the age of the individual, there may be various different things that may be causing it. So there's genetic causes, there's metabolic causes, infectious causes, so people get meningitis, tumors, strokes. There's a whole litany of things that can ultimately cause it. So that's what makes it such a challenge, is that it's such a unique disease in that there's so many different reasons and causes that can cause it. So really the causes are kind of endless, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was reading that like up to 70% of patients don't have a known cause. They don't necessarily
Yeah, there's a very
know
large population of people that we don't really understand. Their genetic tests are negative, their workup is negative. But I think what's really important to highlight is how many Americans have it. 1 in 10 Americans will have a seizure in their lifetime.
Wow.
Now that doesn't mean that they all have epilepsy, but about 1 in 20 of those. So there's 3.5 or so million Americans that suffer from epilepsy on a yearly basis.
Wow.
Which is a very large number of patients.
Yeah. And so is there better treatment options if it's a known cause versus an unknown cause?
It certainly makes my job easier.
Okay.
When you have a very discrete understanding of why they have epilepsy, you can better tailor and target your treatment for it. And if there's a very discrete cause, like a specific lesion, a scar on their brain, a malformation on their brain, you can actually potentially work that person up, and they may be a candidate for epilepsy surgery, which is very curative.
Wow.
The cure rates can be up to 90% in certain cases. So having an understanding or a specific idea of why they have it certainly makes treatment a little bit easier.
Okay. So how do you go about diagnosing that it is epilepsy?
It's a great question. So typically it starts with someone coming in with having a first seizure or having new onset episodes of loss of consciousness, spacing out, blank stares. And we do a very extensive workup. We get images, MRI of the brain. We get an EEG, electroencephalogram, which is essentially what I describe as an EKG of the brain.
Okay.
Most people know what an EKG
Right.
is, so you apply the same principles to the brain to get an understanding of the underlying electrical activity. Once you get all of that done, you get a better answer or a better understanding, but it's not until someone has met the definition of epilepsy that you are able to give them that definition. We're very careful about it because that can carry a lot of stigma with it, and there's a lot of baggage with that. So we try to be very cautious about that diagnosis, but if we have an idea, if we're not entirely sure, we admit them to the epilepsy monitoring unit, which is a special room that we have that we can get continuous monitoring of their brain and video as well to correlate the episodes that are in question and their EEG, and hopefully we give them an answer one way or the other that way.
What are some of the challenges in diagnosing that it is epilepsy?
There's many challenges. One of them being the fact that many times people can have outward behaviors that may be their epilepsy that can be confused for other things. For example, kids who have daydreaming spells. A lot of kids have daydreaming spells that don't have epilepsy. That's just kids. But patients can have staring spells that are due to seizures, behavioral outbursts or changes. They can mimic each other. Fainting can look like a seizure too in some cases. So there's a lot of things that you have to rule out, which is what makes it so challenging.
Okay. What are the things, I guess, that you should look for? Like, we have certain things to look for if you're having a stroke or a heart attack. So what are the things you look for this?
That's a really good question, and it's really hard because depending on what part of the brain is involved, you will have manifestation based on that. So if it's in the back of the brain, it may be vision. If it's in the front, it may be behavior. So you can't really apply the same principles as stroke. But for the most part, most of our patients come to us after they've had a convulsion. And any convulsion or any loss of consciousness, fainting, confusional episode that comes and goes, those are episodes that need to be kind of kept in mind.
Okay. And so what kind of healthcare team should patients look for?
That's a great question. Most neurologists are fairly equipped at getting the workup started, but when you have a complex case or you have an uncertainty or some general uncertainty about if the event is seizure-like, you really need to be going to the care of an epileptologist so that they can fully diagnose you. An epilepsy monitoring unit, we have epilepsy centers of excellence that Mission is in the process of acquiring and elevating to. But you want a place that has a specialist who's able to read these recordings and that has a team. So maybe a neuropsychologist that they're associated with or affiliated with, a good neuroradiology department so that they can read the EEG, they can read the MRIs. So you want to really go to a specialist when it's coming to this kind of stuff.
Okay. And you mentioned the epilepsy monitoring unit. So is this one of the advancements now that's helping with this?
Yeah, so that's one of the many tools that we have at our disposal. It's something that I've been working pretty aggressively to get up on its feet at Mission Hospital. Mission has been fantastic in getting us the necessary services, allocating the necessary funds to make sure that we're able to get it up off the ground. It's basically a room that's hardwired with video and EEG capabilities so that you can record a patient continuously to try to capture the event, because you want to make sure they're safe when they're having an event. And so you actually, counterintuitively, you provoke them to have a seizure so that you can see what it looks like and see what the electrical pattern is and diagnose, okay, where is this coming from? Why is he having it? How often is he or she having it? And what can we do about it?
Okay. Yeah, all definitely good information that's needed.
Yeah.
So tell me about the treatments. What type of treatments are available?
There's many treatments. The majority of the treatments are primarily medication related, and the medications in the last 40 years especially have really kind of exploded, but we still continue to see medications that are added to our arsenal every year. And once the medications have reached a point where you kind of maximize or you're not getting a response, surgical options are considered. So we have devices that we implant for neuromodulation or modifying the irritability or excitation of the nerves with a VNS that goes up to the neck and fires at a certain rate. We have ones that we implant into the brain, so a deep brain stimulator, responsive nerve stimulators that are able to be far more sophisticated in their delivery of that signal to calm the brain down. And then lastly, we have patients who are if they are candidates to resective surgery, they come in, they get evaluated, we find where the lesion is exactly, and we're able to take it out safely after a very comprehensive and thorough evaluation. And they can have a really good likelihood of being successfully cured of epilepsy.
Wow. And so is epilepsy, like, is it the body's response because something's like wrong in the system, or is it like the body's trying to correct something? Like,
no, so epilepsy, the diagnosis is, one of the definitions is an irregular or an aberrant firing of the neurons. So
Okay.
whether that's due to the circuitry being set up the wrong way when the person was being developed, whether there is a fly in the ointment and there's some irritation on the brain, it's really just an inappropriate excitation of the brain.
okay. That good analogies, fly in the in the ointment. I like that one. So does diet play a part in treating epilepsy?
Diet is actually one of it's been around, so the diet modification has been around since the the 50s and 60s, but it's really lately that it's gotten more attention, and it can certainly be as effective as a drug.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible news to know, and good to hear that, because obviously if you don't have to use the drugs.
Right. Many people prefer not to be on medication because of side effects. And yes, the dietary changes can be very restrictive, but can be very liberating because they may not necessarily have to be on a medication.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a typical age when epilepsy starts to show up?
No, because again, it depends on what they're having. So we have plenty of kids that have it in the infancy up to their teenage years because of developmental issues or exposures, and then people as you get older certainly have different reasons for it, and the numbers still increase.
Wonderful. And so are people still able to have like normal long lives?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, certainly. I very much, my philosophy with epilepsy is that you are an individual who happens to have epilepsy. You're not a person with epilepsy. Yeah, it shouldn't be something that defines you. It should be something that you work with, but doesn't impede your ability to function. And I advocate for my patients to, get married, have kids, have normal jobs, do things that they enjoy, because that's really important to quality of life, which can be affected by epilepsy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here and telling us all this information.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay with us. So we have Sports Corner coming up right after this.